The mysteries of Lake Wanarakia. After inheriting his late grandpa's cabin on Lake Wanarakia, Robert discovers that the tranquil retreat is anything but ordinary. From UFO sightings and alien encounters to mysterious neighbors and supernatural events, the cabin becomes a hub of extraordinary adventures. With a magically refilling Visa debit card left by Grandpa and a sense of purpose to help others, Robert navigates a life filled with intrigue, unexpected visitors, and personal growth. Act 1. The Inheritance. The lake was perfectly still that evening, reflecting the hues of a fading sunset as Robert parked his car in front of the cabin. It had been years since they last visited this place, but it still felt like stepping into a memory. Grandpa had always said the cabin was more than just wood and nails. It was a sanctuary. Carrying their bags inside, they paused to take in the rustic charm of the place. The living room was just as they remembered: wood-paneled walls, a stone fireplace, and the centerpiece, Grandpa's fully restored baby grand piano. Running a hand along its smooth surface, they could almost hear him playing one of his impromptu compositions, his laughter filling the room. Upstairs, the recording studio was a treasure trove of Grandpa's creativity, filled with vintage equipment and half-finished projects. They felt a pang of sadness mixed with gratitude. This cabin wasn't just a gift, it was a piece of Grandpa's soul. That first night was bittersweet. The silence of the lake was comforting yet heavy. As they sat on the porch, a faint breeze carried the scent of pine and nostalgia. The stars above seemed brighter than they remembered, as if the universe itself was welcoming them back. The next morning brought introductions to the neighbors. Ron Wilson, with his scruffy beard and twinkling eyes, greeted them with a hearty handshake. "Welcome back to the lake," he said, his voice as warm as the coffee he carried. His wife, Catherine, followed with a kind smile and a gift, a bracelet made of intricately wrapped gemstones. "Your grandpa was a good man," she said. "This place isn't the same without him." Ron regaled them with stories about Grandpa, peppering his tales with his own brand of humor. Catherine, meanwhile, spoke of the lake's history and its reputation for strange happenings. "You'll see things here you won't believe," she said cryptically. Then there was Sean. From the moment they met him, something felt off. He appeared uninvited, lingering at the edge of the property with a sly grin. "So you're the new owner," he said, his tone carrying an edge that made their skin crawl. Sean's reputation as a troublemaker preceded him, and his studio down the hill, ominously named Pelican Pond, only added to the unease. While unpacking later that afternoon, Robert stumbled upon an envelope tucked inside a drawer. Inside was a Visa debit card and a note written in Grandpa's familiar scrawl: "For the cabin, for others, and for the mysteries you'll uncover." Curious, they decided to test the card in town, only to discover its magic, an impossibly high balance that replenished itself. Questions swirled in their mind, but one thing was clear: this was Grandpa's way of guiding them even now. That night, the tranquility of the cabin was interrupted by strange sounds outside. Peering through the window, they saw faint lights flickering in the distance over the lake. The next day, they mentioned it to Catherine, who nodded knowingly. "The lake has its secrets," she said, "and it's chosen you to be part of them." As they explored the cabin further, they discovered a hidden compartment beneath a loose floorboard. Inside were journals filled with Grandpa's handwriting, sketches of the lake, and cryptic notes about otherworldly visitors and unseen forces. It was both thrilling and unsettling. Grandpa had always hinted at believing in the extraordinary, but these journals suggested he had been investigating it. The days that followed were a mix of wonder and unease. The cabin, once a place of childhood joy, now felt alive with possibilities. It was clear that inheriting the cabin wasn't just about owning property. It was about continuing a legacy of discovery, mystery, and perhaps a little magic. Act 2. The Unfolding Mystery. The first real sign that something extraordinary was afoot came on a warm, clear night. Sitting on the porch, strumming their guitar beneath a sky full of stars, Robert noticed an odd movement in the heavens. One particularly bright light began to dance, zigzagging across the sky in impossible patterns. It wasn't a plane, and it certainly wasn't a satellite. As they watched, the light grew brighter, almost as if it were coming closer. Panicked yet fascinated, they grabbed their phone to record the phenomenon. But as soon as they hit record, the light vanished, leaving nothing but an eerie silence in its wake. The next morning, Ron dropped by and chuckled at the description. "Welcome to Wanarakia," he said. "We've all seen the lights at one time or another. Some folks say it's aliens. Others think it's just the government up to no good." That explanation wasn't enough. Robert decided to dig deeper, diving into Grandpa's journals. One entry stood out. "The lights are curious. They watch, but they don't harm. I think they're searching for something. Maybe someone." The words sent a chill down their spine. Their curiosity turned to alarm when a week later, they woke up to find the basement window shattered. Rushing downstairs, they discovered that several pieces of electronic equipment, wires, capacitors, and an old radio transmitter were missing. At first, they assumed it was a burglary. But nothing else was touched. The idea that someone or something had taken only what they needed seemed deliberate, almost calculated. Ron, ever the skeptic, joked that it was raccoons with a knack for engineering, but Catherine looked troubled. "I've heard stories about the lake," she said. "Things going missing, electronics acting up. People say it's them, the ones behind the lights." Sean, of course, had his own theory. He showed up unannounced, leaning casually against the porch railing. "Probably just some drifters," he said with a smirk. "But if you're not careful, you'll start believing all the nonsense these folks talk about." Sean's dismissive attitude only fueled Robert's determination to uncover the truth. With Grandpa's journals as their guide, they began to piece together a timeline of strange events around the lake. The journals mentioned other sightings, strange visitors, and even a diagram labeled Beacon, which seemed to correlate with the missing equipment. One night, as they sat by the fireplace, turning the pages of a particularly worn journal, Robert noticed something peculiar. Embedded in the back cover was a small, metallic disc, a key of sorts, though it didn't resemble anything they had ever seen. Holding it up to the light, they noticed a faint engraving, coordinates. The next day, armed with the coordinates, they ventured deep into the woods behind the cabin. The trek was arduous, the terrain unforgiving, but eventually, they stumbled upon something astonishing, a clearing with a circular indentation in the earth, as if something massive had once landed there. In the center was a single, blackened tree stump, its surface charred but still warm to the touch. The discovery only raised more questions. What had Grandpa been searching for? And why did it feel like the cabin, and perhaps the entire lake, was at the center of something far bigger than they could comprehend? As the mysteries deepened, so did Robert's resolve. Whatever secrets Lake Wanarakia held, they were determined to uncover them, even if it meant venturing into the unknown. Act 3. The Visitors. The first encounter came in the dead of night. Robert had fallen asleep at the piano, lulled by the melody of an improvised tune, when a strange humming sound jolted them awake. It wasn't coming from the lake or the woods, it was inside the cabin. Heart pounding, they grabbed a flashlight and crept downstairs, following the sound to the basement. The shattered window from weeks ago had been left boarded up, but now the boards were scattered on the floor. The humming grew louder as they stepped cautiously into the room. The air was thick, vibrating with an otherworldly frequency. And then they saw it, a faint, shimmering outline of a figure, neither entirely solid nor transparent. Its form flickered like static on an old television. The figure tilted its head as if studying them, and in a moment of courage, or sheer recklessness, Robert whispered, "What do you want?" The figure didn't speak but extended a long, translucent hand toward the old radio transmitter they had managed to repair and set back on the shelf. The humming intensified as the machine crackled to life, emitting a series of strange beeps and tones. It was a pattern almost like a language. Suddenly, the figure vanished, leaving the basement eerily silent. Robert stood frozen, unsure whether to feel relieved or terrified. Gathering their thoughts, they decided to consult Grandpa's journals once more. One passage stood out. They communicate through frequencies. The radio is their voice, the static their words. They mean no harm. They seek connection. The next morning, they confided in Ron and Catherine. Ron, ever the practical jokester, suggested they lay off the late-night snacks, but Catherine was visibly shaken. "They've chosen you," she said. "You're the one they trust. Maybe you should try talking back." Robert set to work, modifying the radio transmitter using the diagrams from Grandpa's journals. It wasn't easy. They were no tech expert. That's when Albie Leon III, an old friend and tech specialist, arrived unexpectedly, saying Grandpa had once asked him to keep an eye on the cabin if things ever got strange. Together, they managed to construct what Grandpa had dubbed the beacon array. The first time they activated it, the response was immediate. The same humming sound filled the air, but this time it was accompanied by flashes of light outside. Rushing to the porch, they saw 3 glowing orbs hovering over the lake, pulsing in unison with the radio tones. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once. But not everyone was thrilled. Sean appeared the next day, angry and accusatory. "I don't know what you're up to, but you're stirring up things that should be left alone," he growled. His presence felt more threatening than usual, and Robert couldn't shake the feeling that Sean knew more than he let on. Later that night, Sean's warning proved prophetic. A loud crash woke them, and they discovered the beacon array had been sabotaged. Wires were ripped out, and parts were smashed beyond repair. It wasn't just mischief, it was deliberate. Sean's fingerprints were all over it, both literally and metaphorically. Desperate to re-establish contact with the visitors, Robert turned to the mysterious metallic disc they'd found in Grandpa's journal. Albie examined it and discovered it was some sort of key, not for a lock but for a device. They realized it fit perfectly into the radio's modification slot. With no other options, they activated the array once more. This time, the response was overwhelming. The lights above the lake converged, and the shimmering figure from the basement reappeared, this time fully materialized. It was humanoid, with luminous eyes and a gentle presence. Through the radio, it transmitted a series of tones that Albie managed to decode into words. "We seek repair. You have helped. Thank you." As the figure faded, Robert noticed that their broken electronics, everything the visitors had taken, were now neatly returned to the basement, fully functional and even upgraded. It was a gesture of goodwill, a thank you for their unintentional assistance. The experience left them shaken but exhilarated. The visitors weren't just anomalies, they were intelligent beings seeking aid. And for some reason, Robert had become their bridge to humanity. This encounter marked the turning point in their journey at Lake Wanarachia. The cabin was no longer just a home. It was a portal to the extraordinary, a place where the past, present, and unknown converged. Yet with every answer came new questions. Why had Grandpa been chosen? And now why them? As the lights over the lake faded into the night, Robert felt a deep connection to both the visitors and their grandpa's legacy. But the mysteries were far from over. Lake Wanarachia still had secrets to reveal, and Robert was ready.
The stars are shining brighter tonight. Reflections dance on water's light. A shadow moves across the sky. A whisper calls, but I don't know why. The wind is speaking, secrets untold. The air is heavy, it's quiet and cold. In the still of the night, I feel it awake. A visitor's here on the lake. cabin holds its secrets deep. Grandpa's words haunt my sleep. The journals speak of a world unseen, of visitors here and what it might mean. Through broken windows, through midnight's haze, you leave me searching, lost in a maze. What are you seeking? What will you take? A visitor's here on the lake. Visitor on the lake, who are you? Glowing lights and a mystery so true. You came in silence, left no trace, but I see your shadow in this sacred space. See your shadow in this sacred space. Is it the stars or something more? Are you knocking on my door? I feel you close, but I can't explain. Your presence is here in my veins. Visitor on the lake, who are you? Glowing lights and a mystery so true. You came in silence, left no trace, but I see your shadow in this sacred space. Maybe you're searching, maybe it's fate, but I'll be here by the lake, waiting for answers, wide awake for the visitor on the lake. Visitor on the lake, will I ever see you again? It seems that you're my only